Well, hello, and welcome to Stop Let's Team Up. I'm Ross Hicken. I'm joined by Ron from Fantastic Comic Fan, and we're going to talk, oh, imagine this, team ups. Um,
Imagine that.
I'm planning on doing a series of episodes based on people's favorites team ups from the big four. And I mean big four. There have been more than four team ups titles, but the big four being Marvel Team Up, Marvel 2-in-1, DC Comics Presents, and The Brave and the Bold. I will probably jump and do World's Finest, Super Team Family. There's some Western ones that I've never read, and I thought going through the Team Up Companion by Michael Urey from Tomorrow's, which is a great tool, and has a list of every team up in the back with the credits, which is nice. So I wanted to ask Ron a couple questions, and then we're just going to touch base on the big four, some little things. So, Ron, were you a fan of the Team Up comics?
You know, when we were doing this, yes and no. I was never a big fan of the Marvel Team Up book,
Mm-hmm.
just for some reason. I liked DC Comics Presents because I was a big Superman fan. Brave and the Bold was okay, but I think I liked Marvel 2-in-1 the most because it seemed like the less formulaic of the done in one. And to me, Ben Grimm was the most, even to this day, is the most well-rounded, most versatile character that you can throw him basically anywhere
You can,
and he
yeah,
can
you
do
can do
any story.
anything with him because I've cut, yeah. I've kind 2-in-1's my favorite because it was the first comic book when I started collecting floppies as a kid in the late 70s. It was the first series I ever completed when I bought my Marvel 2-in-1 #1. But I like it because I like Ben. Ben's a little more relatable.
Yeah, and
And some of the arcs, when they would get into the arcs like Pegasus, Princess, Serpent Crown, the Spider Woman one, there it's I'm more engaged in it. The DC, I will take DC Comics Presents over Brave and the Bold because I think it had, I don't want to say better quality because there's a boatload of really high quality art in Brave and the Bold because it's Aparo, it's Adams, it's Cardi. You know what I mean? There's just, I think the Marvel 2-in-1 and the Marvel Team Up, the quality of the art was a little more jarring at times. You'd go from good Ron Wilson to bad Ron Wilson to why is Mooney drawing the thing?
most of
Mm.
those, all of those team up books didn't have very long, consistent creators involved, either artists or writers, especially
Brave
in,
and the Bold, maybe because of Opero,
yeah,
but
well,
but
yeah, apparel, and I'm sorry, I'm talking more of the Marvel stuff. That
oh,
was my
Marvel, no, Marvel. Ron Wilson did most of the 2-in-1, but he wasn't always the artist.
No. And back then, during the 70s, a lot of Marvel stuff was rushed out because they were always meeting deadlines. And
You can tell. You
yes,
can,
yes.
especially in those early issues of 2-in-1, because I've started to collect them finally in epics, and their third volume's coming out sometime next year, which will get you three-quarters of the way through it because it's only 100 issues.
They were a gateway for the companies to introduce fans to not only to new characters, but characters that they might not have been familiar with. Spider-Man was teaming up with Iron Man. Oh, let me go check out Iron
Yeah,
Man.
exactly, and that's why I'm glad you brought that up because that's the good thing about them is how do you advertise your intellectual property in a cost-effective, maybe profitable ways to have a book that showcases them. And I think that's one thing publishers, I don't how they figure out what's popular. I don't know how they're figuring it out. I don't even know how Marvel really figured out other than letters in
You
the old
know,
days.
I
But
can tell you with DC Comics Presents, usually Julius Schwartz, who was the editor,
yeah, he
would
was for
go
most of
and
them.
say, "Hey, let's do this." Sometimes, like when Ambush Bug was in DC Comics Presents, he would accept the idea, but usually he'd go, "Here, go do something like that." I think the DC Comics Presents, it was more of a classic Superman that was it was very done in that Bronze Age, pre-crisis Superman, and you knew what you were going to get. Spider-Man, there wasn't much difference between really the Silver Age and the Bronze Age Spider-Man. It was just, basically Spider-Man.
Yeah,
But I liked what they were doing with DC Comics Presents. It just seemed to be a brighter, better quality book overall. And it had the best logo of all of them. That
yeah, it did,
logo.
and they had some really. They would have really one. It had a lot of Jose excuse me,
Jose,
Jose
yep, Garcia
Lopez
Lopez.
art. Oh my God, wonderful stuff. And then you'd have when they finished up the Levitz Ditko Starman run. They gave it to
Yes,
Jim Wine and Starlin, and they did a Martian Manhunter. They did like 3 issues that basically introduced Mongol,
yes,
and
that
it's
was in the
incredible.
20s. Yeah, you know, the team up books, all of them, even though they're decades old, they still stand up. You can still read them and get a good Batman story, a good Superman story, a good Thing story. They do hold up after all this time. Most of that stuff is available in some kind of collection somewhere around. I know Marvel's done
Yeah,
a better
Marvel
job.
Team Up has not been reprinted though.
I think it has been in the essentials because it's dropped most.
Essentials, yeah, but it's only that black and white. They've never done a color version of it. They've not done an epic yet. I mean, epics have been around over a decade,
I
and
thought
they're
they did
just
some epics because they dropped some Marvel team up not too long in the Marvel Unlimited
no,
for
it's
some odd
Marvel.
reason.
Yeah, but no, it's just Marvel 2 and 1 is going to be a they're going to be a third volume, but there's not a team up volume yet.
And they only did like the first like couple issues, I'm sorry, couple years of Brave and the Bold and two Omnis. I'm like, why did they, they didn't finish the run. They did like the first through like 1971, 1972, two
Yeah, they
volumes.
did. Yeah, they did three Omnis, but I don't know what it has. I don't because Brave and Bold is unique at the beginning. Is it wasn't a Batman book.
No,
It was the first one is Martian Manhunter and Green Arrow, which is a lot of fun. I owned it for a while. I had to sell it years ago.
that was the
It,
start of the team. That was the start of the official team up formula
yeah,
by
yeah,
Bob Haney.
and
He developed it, and that's where we started from there.
Murray Boltinoff was a good editor for it because he didn't give a shit about continuity.
Well, neither did Bob Haney either.
No, no. And if you put those two together, you got some like, okay,
Well, that's why they called it Earth B a lot of times. Earth
yeah, yeah,
B,
yeah.
a lot of people thought was Bob Haney, but no, it was for the editor. And Bob Rozakis is one of the ones that helped coin that phrase because they just didn't care about.
At all. I know. I love it because Earth 2 podcast is just taking advantage of it. And they'll, when they're doing a Brave and the Bold, they're guessing which planet it is on sometimes because you're not really sure.
See, with the Brave and the Bold, they made it work because they gave them some very unique characters to team up with,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Commandy, the
Sergeant
Kung Fu
Rock
Predator, Sergeant Rock. I think there was an unknown soldier.
himself,
Yes, yes. My
what's the
fa
what
my
100, the last one?
No, that
Was
was
it one?
200. I was just gonna
Hmm.
say Brave and the Bold 200 is probably my favorite Brave and the Bold issue because he teams up with the Earth 2 Batman
Yeah,
and they
you
bounce
came on
back
my
and
show and
forth.
we talked about it, didn't you?
I
I
think
love
we
it.
did. It's
Yeah,
one of
I
the
love
great things.
it's a great comic.
DC Comics Presents, one of the issues I want to recommend is, I believe, the third. No, DC Comics Presents Annual from 1982. It was written by Marv Wolfman, and it had a team up between the Earth 1 and the Earth 2 Superman.
Oh, and they have and Lex is that the one where you meet the hero Luthor?
Yes, and you also get to see Clark and Lois married on Earth 2, which they had done a few years before.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's kind of interesting because you can see Lois and Clark from Earth 2 and Lois and Clark from Earth 1 and the dynamics. And they even had the Lois from Earth 3 who was married to the Lex Luthor from Earth 3, which was the crime scene. It really holds up. Also, that was kind of like a prologue to Marv Wolfman's Crisis on Infinite Earths.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. And near the end where we meet the Superboy of Earth Prime is in a DC Comics present.
Yes.
And Supergirl's story, her last solo adventure, her last big adventure is in a DC Comics presents.
Yes.
I think DC treated it. I think when Levitz was when he took charge because it was already running when he became publisher,
I think
and I
they,
think he started put because he did some stuff in it. He did some really good stuff in it.
well, you have to look at when it came out. It came out in 1978 when the Superman movie was right around the corner.
Yeah,
And Superman was celebrating his 40th anniversary at the same time. So they wanted to launch this book with as much oomph as they could. And it's interesting that all of them ended right around 1985.
I
All of these things
I
all
don't
ended.
understand. They brought them back. They did. Robert Kirkman did. I think a very good, fun run of Marvel Team Up.
Yes.
It was
I
five
mean, they,
trades. It was
yeah,
good art. It was good mixture. He understood the formula, but he also it was definitely a love letter to those Marvel ones where the Spider Woman one where it moves through four books with different team ups. The Serpent Crown, Project Pegasus, which is one I'll always recommend. I'm scrolling through. You picked your favorite one, and I'm trying to find. There's so many. I love DC Comics Present, and I love the four Starlin ones.
the
The
very
spec.
last DC Comics Presents has a epilogue to the Phantom Zone miniseries that was published in the early
Oh,
80s that Steve Gerber also wrote. And I'm not sure if Gene Colan did the art, but I read the original Phantom Zones miniseries, and Gene Colan did the art, and it was very spooky, very eerie. And that was the last issue. It served as an epilogue with the Phantom Zone villains.
yeah. So I found the one I wanted to talk about. I've forgotten.
What is it?
Which for DC Comics Presents, it's my favorite is it 32 issues? 52. It's the Paul Cooperberg, Keith Giffen team up with the modern Doom Patrol, the reboot Doom Patrol. It's just early Giffen. It's those four characters. It's just and it's
I
fun. That's why I like those. I think
is
for team up,
Ambush Bug in there? Did he make a cameo?
not in that one. He is in. He has his own. Is he
Because he
new?
was
Is it?
in, he had, I think he premiered in DC Comics Presents, and Julia Schwartz liked him and brought him back again later in the
Is
run.
this one? There's one of them where he is in it. I don't think. Yeah, no, it is. This is the one. Yes, he was
See, I
introduced
did
to
my
this. He's
homework,
kind.
Ross. You know
Uh,
me. I go deep diving.
I know. I just and
I believe
it's
that was
just
his first appearance.
yeah. It is. It is. I know because he has his own. He gets his own team up. And team up. I think my favorites. I don't know. It's some of that early stuff. It's been so long since I've read team up because I haven't read one in a long
Well, see,
time.
that's the same thing with me when I didn't take any of the team up because there's nothing out of the three titles that you said that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, my favorite for two and one would either be where he meets himself in issue 50,
And he did it get in number 100, didn't he?
100. Yeah, because that turns into
The Thing.
the Thing, which is a really good series. I would think it would be the Project Pegasus stuff because I that is one that I read over and over and over and over and over again. One, it was George Perez art. He I love his thing. I really love his thing, and it had a bunch of good characters in it. You had Black Goliath, and they were calling him Giant Man. You had Jack.
What
Yeah, it
what
was.
made that Pegasus story so interesting is how they actually found out to put a character each issue when it's not really a continuing story. You know, they went from one character to one character to one character. It was interesting how they lined up all these characters to make this Pegasus project work. My favorite issue, I think, has to go back to, I think, Marvel 2 and 130 at 32, which had Spider-Woman in it, which was her second appearance, because that was
Yeah,
my very first Marvel 2 and 1 that I bought. And right around there, you had Alicia turn into this big, scary spider arachnid creature.
yeah, it was good. It was a story when I read it when I did it the episode for it. It was it was a lot of fun. It was so much fun, and it was. I think the art in it was good. I think it was good. Ron Wilson. My problem with some of Ron, they don't give him the best inkers.
No.
He had some very light-handed inkers, and I think he needed because his art at the end of the run and in the thing is wonderful, and I just think it's who he's paired with. And I think
Fans of
Byrne,
Claremont and Burns X-Men need to check out Marvel Team Up because they did several issues together.
I did they
Yeah,
for like a year. It was their book.
they did a
Um,
bunch, and they also did Iron Fist behind before that. Marv Wolfman did a 14 issue run. I think it was Marvel 2 and 1, but he hated to do team up books. He
which
did
is
not
weird
like to
because
do team up books because he
but
said they
he
were
wrote team books, so I did. It's kind of odd.
because the team up books were formulaic. They were done in one character
Yeah,
meets, you know,
gotcha.
that was his thing. And I just found that odd that he did not like making those. But Claremont thought they were fun. He enjoyed them. I know J.M. DeMatteis went on to do some Marvel Toolman later in that run, and his thing was to find the amount of wackiest characters he could put into that series. That was
Yeah.
his thing. Gerber wrote some of the issues in the early ones.
Oh yeah. There's some because that would tie into his Defenders.
Yes.
The because I was talking to Billy today to record an episode, and the next time I do a Defenders, one of my Daring Defenders, it's the Guardians of the Galaxy storyline, and that goes into 2-in-1. That's and then there's some it's they appear in team. It's great. I finally thought of a team up that I would definitely say is my favorite. Is the one where he meets Captain Britain.
Yeah, that was created by Chris Claremont, I believe.
Yeah, it was Claremont and Trimpe created the character,
We're
and
no, go on.
yeah, I bought the omnibus last year, and there's a lot of stuff that I've never read, which is why I bought it, like the stuff written for English comics.
Yes.
So, but it's beautiful Herb Trimpe black and white art and really solid Chris Claremont writing. And his I liked his team up. Him and Byrne when they were doing team up right after Iron Fist before he went to X-Men, he's arcades invented there.
Claremont said he really enjoyed writing the team up books.
He's good at it. He's good at it.
Did you know?
And
Here's your Brave and the Bold fun fact. Martian Manhunter and the Flash were in the Brave and the Bold so many times because they were actually pretty popular characters back in the 60s.
yeah, that's in because we were talking about Martian Manhunter. It's neat. We take him for granted now because he's in
Yes.
TV, he's in cartoons, he's in comics, and he has been. But me and Billy were covering JLA 100 through 102 today, and Martian Manhunter gets one panel cameo, and Billy doesn't know the history as well. He goes, "So what's with Mark Manhunter?" Oh, they wrote him out.
Yes.
They wrote him out and didn't bring him back until a little before Detroit Legion. Conway brought him back a little before Detroit Legion, and then he was pretty much a mainstay for 15 years, and then he kind of disappeared again, and he comes in and out. But he was a forgotten character, but he was really popular. He was was that his home book?
It might have been, yeah.
Been for a little bit, yeah,
Yeah.
because Brave and Bold was just like Showcase. It was an anthology. It was a showcase book.
Yes.
So, but it's fun. So I would think my favorite Brave and the Bold is the one the Batman and Batman by Dave Gibbons.
I don't know the history of why they chose Batman for Brave and the Bold because Batman was not a big selling title.
But isn't this when this book became the most popular Batman book?
It was the most popular Batman book during the whole 1970s. It did very good business. Yes.
And consistent because I think the quality was.
Well, you had great artists. I mean, you had Apparel on there, Neil Adams, Bob Haney, who was, consistently putting out crazy yarns, but they're still enjoyable and still readable.
Yeah, any Bob Haney comics fun, even because you go even if the plot ends up in some stupid weird explanation at the end because he didn't think it through, or that it's just if you read his early Teen Titans, that's so there's is this intentionally serious or are we a little high or what's going on? Because they're just fun. I mean, and who wrote it toward the end? Was it like Conway?
I forget who wrote it towards the end. I didn't check into that.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that. It may have changed a bit because I mean, DC Comics Present didn't have a steady writer.
No.
So
before it became the team up book, unfortunately, DC does not do a very good job of archiving their comic books. But Brave and the Bold was a tryout book like Showcase was for a while there. That's where you had the Justice League came in there with Justice League was in issue number 28. The Titans were in 54 in 1965.
Suicide Squad was one of them.
Suicide Squad was in 25. You had the Hawkman by Joe Kubert recreating the new version in 34.
Had those great Starman, Black Canary team ups.
And those were, Brave and the Bold outside of the Batman, you need to look at the stuff that they did before they became Batman team up because they had some really good iconic stuff. DC does have, which I didn't realize, they have the Suicide Squad showcase in a volume, plus some of their old war comics also in that volume.
I bought that. Yeah, it's all in one. It's folks. It's one whole volume, and it is all their appearances.
and DC and Marvel do not do a very good job of archiving war comics. I
No,
just
they did that, and that one has been printed both as a very thin omnibus and as a single volume in the, when they were doing the Silver Age omnis, they were doing that, and then they do a paperback.
This is my
So
chance to plug all you folks. DC Comics Infinite's app has great things in it. You get the comic books 1 month after they stop or ship at the print or your comic book shop, and every single graphic novel and trade that DC has is available to read on that app for free. It is one of the best deals out there.
yeah, it is. It is because when I do, sometimes I'll be looking for stuff for homework, and I'll go, "Ooh, I'm gonna," and spend an hour going through some trade I've never seen.
I
Oh,
did that a few
how
times.
did? And since I watch Near Mint Condition, and I've been buying the omnis, talking about mapping because with Epics and Omnis, and I think what DC's going to do with DC's Finest, their version of Epic, is they're not going to just put this is Action Comics 1 through 3 in it. They're going to put everything you need to read for whatever's going on. If it's, they're doing some Golden Age, they're doing Bronze Age, they're doing Modern, and they're doing some neat stuff. And they're putting the first batch out. So I'm hoping those end up on the app because that'd be a lot of fun.
That would be, it's odd that all four of these team up books were successful, but neither company launched any other successful team up books. They all floundered and failed.
I don't get it, and I think, the Kirkman one is the longest run because it's like 20 some issues, but
Well,
that's
yeah,
it.
but I'm talking like during the Bronze Age, you would
No.
think that during when the Marvel team up came up and the Thing came up, you would have more, but they didn't.
Yeah.
It was very weird that they just didn't do anything.
Byrne brought it back because he made Action was the theme up
Yeah,
book.
that was after. Yes, he brought it back and he did it
And
successfully.
then for just a little while, and then they
Like a
decided
little over a year.
Yeah, and then is that when they gave Action to somebody else? I think that's what happened. I think Byrne went down to one book.
I need to give a shout out before we end your podcast. Super team or super villain team up from Marvel was a wonky little thing that had Doctor Doom, Submariner,
Let's
and
go.
yes, I
Uh,
revisit that every
it's
so
got some Jim
often.
Shooter. There's an issue with Jim Shooter art because they ran out of time and he had to draw. Yes, it's part of that crossover with the Avengers and Atuma.
I'm gonna have to check on that.
Yeah.
For you folks who don't realize, back in the 70s, comic books had to have deadlines and they had to get comic books
Yeah.
out no matter what, because they didn't get it to the printers, they would get this hefty fine. So you would have creators doing stuff overnight. You would have creators, multiple inkers, Jim Shooter, who was not an artist, doing all these side jobs. That's how Bill Mantlo became such a big writer, because he was known as the Filling King, because he could literally turn in a plot and a story overnight. And outside
Yep.
of Stan Lee, he probably wrote for more characters than anybody else outside of Stan Lee.
Yeah. He is my he should be on the Mount Rushmore of comic writers in my head because I'm reading wrong. It's just anything written by him, folks. Check it out. And he did some team ups, didn't he?
He did everything.
Yeah, he did.
He did everything. I mean, he did Marvel 2-in-1s. He did some films for Marvel 2-in-1. Did some for team
He
up.
did the second to last 2-in-1 because it was ROM. Because he wrote every ROM issue.
Oh, he wrote every ROM and most of the Micronaut series, which were also two more series.
He wrote every issue of both Micronaut series.
That's right, he did. You're right.
He did, and he wrote every issue of ROM, they're both beautiful. So I'm gonna wrap up. I'm a big fan of the team ups. Hence, I'm doing a podcast called Team Ups. But folks, check them out. Check out Michael Urie's book, the Team Up Companion. Tomorrow's is always having sales. I think this is one of their better ones. It is detailed. It's got a checklist. This is something if I had this when I was like 13 or 14, because my brother would get those index books, and I've still got some of them, and I would have loved it. This is great. And there are other ones, and this has given me ideas. Maybe I will do a podcast about Marvel Supervillain Team Up because it is a weird comic.
Especially the last few issues when they have like the hate monger and some other stuff in there.
Yeah, and it's like, how did this thing last 15 issues?
And started up as a giant size at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. So, all right, Ron. Hey, do you go ahead and plug your stuff, and then
I run a semi-weekly kind of podcast, short form, 15 to 20 minutes, We talk about all types of stuff on there, Golden Age to present. You can find all that information by going to the website, fantasticcomicfan.com. Everything you need to know is there. Hope you check it out. There's a lot of good shows coming up in the future.
All right, folks. Well, hey, thanks, Ron, for being on. And folks, thanks for listening. And remember, be safe, be smart, please be kind to one another, and read some team up comics.